screen, you'll see my character spawn into the world. And after you spawn in, you can customize them everything. I've been learning Unreal Engine for the last about 2 years almost, on and off. And yeah, I've been streaming on the platform for over 10 years now, but I just got into VTuber community and Unreal development in recent years.
So, what ultimately inspired you to build this world? How did you even start creating it?
Yeah, so I have always been interested in game development, and I saw VTubing blowing up on Twitch, and I thought that it looked really fascinating. I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, people are using essentially kind of almost like, 3D or 2D characters, and I thought that looked really fun, and it kind of bridged the gap of like sort of entering game development because I'm like, okay, I'll make my own little character. And then once I did that, I wanted to take it to another step, and I was like, okay, well, now I need like a little 3D space for them. And I played a lot of games growing up, like The Sims and Roller Coaster Tycoon, all these worlds that let you customize the environment pretty heavily. And I got really into like modding stuff when I was younger too, so I kind of knew like very basic fundamentals just from having that like early childhood experience of looking at like when I would download custom skins for The Sims. I would see like the UV maps, and I kind of had a basic understanding like, oh, okay, like I'm seeing like an outfit completely flat and it's like wrapping around the character. So like just I had very very minimal basic knowledge of how things worked, but yeah, everything's snowballed the moment I started looking up YouTube tutorials and everything, and I was really impressed with like so many things from Unreal. Like, I'd always see people recreate their favorite childhood like games, like a level or something in Unreal. I'm like, oh, that looks cool. So I was kind of knew about it in my back of my head, and yeah, I once I learned it was free and I could just like test it out, I was like, okay, let me just go ahead and download that, and the rest was kind of history.
So did you talked about how you'd play The Sims and stuff. Are there elements of your world that are inspired by some of that? Should we take a fly through of the world that you've built so that folks can kind of see at least what we're kind of
Yeah.
talking about today?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. That totally works with me. So over here, you can see this is what the actual hub looks like. So this is a bird's eye view from the entire city this way. And totally a lot of inspiration from The Sims. There's this giant floating pufferfish that is like floating around, which is a callback to The Sims 4. Uh, there's just like little emoji in my chat community based around it, so it just floats around whenever I hit play. And yeah, this is actually a Unreal Engine marketplace asset, the city itself, but I heavily customized it, and then I actually used The Sims and a couple other things to kind of build out this custom made loft, which is where my actual 3D model resides. And yeah, I can actually like walk around in the space and everything too. We even have this cool little bathroom space, and then over here there's the main area that my stream usually sees, which is my stream layout, which is still decked out for Halloween at the moment. But yeah, this is just like a glimpse of all of it here, a little setup and everything.
Works as
here.
a nice Day of the Dead nod, at least.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll keep the spooky vibes going. No, yeah. So
Totally.
you talked about leveraging a lot of marketplace assets and resource. Like, so did you mainly lean on YouTube videos? Did you find other folks to work with and collaborate?
Yeah, so just to really get the bare bone basics of everything, I actually did go onto YouTube, and I found this really great channel, this YouTuber by the name of Make Games with Katie, and she has this like 8-part Learn Unreal Engine for Beginners series. And I watched all of it, and yeah, I followed along with it all just to kind of get the bare bones, like just how to navigate the camera, move props, and all that. And then when it came to actually like learning blueprints and everything, thankfully I have a couple of friends that are in the industry who are game devs. I have another friend who is in the animation industry, and they use Unreal for their animation. So I would reach out to them, and they taught me some pretty like basic ones. The first thing that I learned to do is basically to change the color of my space. So like you'll see over here, right now by default I'm red, but I can go here and now we're purple, and it changes not only my outfit and hairstyle and all that, but it changes like the lights
Yeah.
and everything and all the other aspects of the environment. Actually, even changes some of the stuff in the world too.
Yeah, so it's obviously like you're a one-man band operator. You drive these streams all by yourself, and there's a lot of pieces here. So how do you manage all of those stream elements and then jumping between, you've got your avatar mode where the camera's on you and you're in your loft versus, the environment outside. So how do you one make all that happen on, just a actual operator point, but can you also talk about like technically how some of that was implemented?
Yeah, sure. So, I should mention that other one other aspect about the blueprints I forgot to mention is I also did find another community of VTubers, and I've collaborated with them as well. From the stream side, it's really nice because I've been able to take the last like decade of streaming experiences of using things like OBS and just all this other aspects of live production. So it's definitely has been a skill that I've been learning for the last few years. And then yeah, I'm really happy to collaborate with other Unreal Engine VTubers. Even though there's only a handful of us out there, everyone is doing really cool things, and uh, being able to just take it to like the next level. If we actually go back to my screen a little bit, I could actually walk out and show a little bit more in detail, kind of more what's going around in the actual world itself. So we can actually like go over here and see this whole world here where we can actually um, see these characters walking around. So over here, for instance, we should see some people that spawned in a moment ago. So let me see. I know I saw some hanging around. We have NPCs and then also people that have spawned in. So yeah, here I asked some people to spawn in earlier, and you'll just see them kind of roaming around. They do different little expressions, and they will be able to actually customize their character too. So we have the ability to change their main color, their alternate color, eye color, item color. As they watch, they can basically gain channel points, which is just by watching the stream, and you can essentially redeem cosmetics. So, like right here, I just found mine over here, and basically in my own chat, I can go and change different aspects about my character here. Like right now, they have dog ears, but we could put cat ears on. We also have an elephant cosmetic. For Halloween, we launched some new ones, so I can also change the item color. So right now I have like red wings, but we could change it to be white. And this is all done through Twitch commands and channel points. All of it's integrated straight into Twitch. So and it's all using Unreal Engine Marketplace plugins that have been integrated into the actual game itself.
Yeah, could you talk a little more about that? So there's, right, users come in, they're watching your show, and they decide they want to be a part of it, or they've created these characters, then they can also enter commands to customize those. So how is that command on the Twitch side speaking to Unreal Engine? Like, what does it look like to implement those pieces? Or
Sure. So here, I will go ahead. I'm going to enter this called the customizer scene. And so if anyone that's watching that wants to spawn in, they would have to go to my chat, and in my chat specifically type Noodle. And when they do that, they actually will spawn into the actual world. So here we have a couple people that have spawned in. And right now my character is red, but you can see I have color commands at the bottom right. So the way that it works is that in chat, I specifically have to type main, main, followed by, let's just do purple. And there it changes everything to be purple. It even changes the arcade cabinet. I can change the alternate color to be white instead. The eyes I could also change to be a purple. And so it's all done through chat commands at the bottom right. So it's like the main alternate eye and item color. And the way that it works on the actual side of Unreal Engine is with this plugin that we use, which is called Twyworks. It essentially uses Twitch's API to pull them into there, and they spawn in a character into the world, and only they can control that particular Noodle. So like I won't be able to change anyone else's because it's specifically looking for my username on Twitch. So as long as it lines up with your Twitch username, you can change the one that matches your name. And yeah, it pulls all that data from Twitch's API, and I am basically able to save it. So every time someone makes a customization to the head, top, or bottom, it is saved locally to my hard drive. So that way, the next time when you come over to my stream, and if you spawn in, then you will be able to see your character exactly the way that you left them before, which was really important to do because, for instance, in order to get a cosmetic, you'll see a lot of people here have like these cute little dog ears or these mage hats and angel wings and a giraffe cosmetic. So those are all redeemed with channel points. Roughly about like 15 hours worth of watching will get you a cosmetic, but you keep it forever and you can cycle them whenever you want to. So you have your own personal inventory that is linked to your username that's stored on my hard drive as well. Because I wanted to make sure that there was just like an incentive to watch and a way to reward people for essentially watching the streams, and they will be able to change between their different items. So like right now I have the angel wings, but if I wanted to go and change back to like the dog ears that I had, I could do that by doing the command to change there. And if anyone's like in the actual, like I see there's a lot of people in my specific chat room, I'm posting, there's a link to my webpage that goes into even more specifics if anyone is curious.
I think it's so awesome that you made it. I would not have expected it to be persistent, so that if you've customized it and changed it there, you can keep doing it, which is such a really meaningful experience for your community, right? They get to be a part of it, they get to interact and have their own character in this world. So what can these characters do? How do they control them in the world? Or do they just sort of meander about?
So I'll go back here to my chat screen. Let me do this. We'll go back here. So don't worry, you're still, to anyone that's spawned in, you're still here, I promise. But yeah, the way that people can essentially interact with the world, you'll see right there at the top right that people are redeeming channel points to like claim a cosmetic and everything. But once you spawn in, you essentially take over a NPC that's in the world. And so depending on when you spawn in, you will be doing something random. Like last time mine was over here and they were sitting by the bus stop, but they're no longer there because I spawned in again, so I had to go and find them. But there's about roughly, I want to say almost 100 spots where people can spawn, and so I have to go out and basically find them. They're around here somewhere, I promise. There they go. Okay, we found some people. So here we have Six Petron, who's over here, you know, at like a little vendor. Here we have Agent J-Wall, who's tending a ice cream little stand here. We have people just socializing this way over this way. Now, I don't know if Yoshi, Otaku, or Stymie are there, but if they type anything in chat, whatever they type in my Twitch chat will actually show up above their avatars as well. So they will, for the most part, just kind of linger around the city, and they will kind of just, sometimes they'll walk around too. So like we have certain ones that are programmed to go along a set path. So you'll see them going across the street, or they'll actually go and just do like a little bit of a lap around the park or whatever. But on top of that, what else you can do is there is another special feature. So let me go here. Let me make sure I have it on. So there's something where you can spend channel points to essentially feature yourself even more. So if I go here, I can go on a little bike ride. So we'll type in bike here, and then it'll happen in real time. So there's my Noodle going on a little bike ride around the city. So yeah, right now we have two actions where they can go on a little bike ride like that, and they can also go skydiving too. So those are the current two things that they
Ooh.
can do, and those trigger, like, let's say I'm in the middle of playing a game, even if I'm like uh not particularly like walking around in the city like this, it'll show up as a picture in picture, so that way you don't feel like you've wasted your channel points. Like, it'll still show up in the little picture in picture like this. And now my avatar, they're flying over there, they're doing a little skydive, and you can see them actually from multiple perspectives as well. So that's how they can how chat can interact with the world even more. And yeah, I'm hoping to add more redemptions in the future. That way, like, they could go. I actually have some props made for this, but we have a little ice cream stand over here. So I want to make one where they go over here and they can pick which one of the three ice creams they want their noodle to eat, for instance. And we also have hopefully for next summer, because the city's big, we have this whole beach area over here too. Oh, and I can make it
Oh,
daytime actually. Yeah, so eventually for like summer, I would love to be able to make it so that there's a redemption where they can go like surfing for a little bit, or just like lounge on a chair or whatever. Thankfully, the possibilities are pretty endless, and uh, thanks to Unreal Engine's marketplace having such a large library of animations for a really affordable price, I'm able to definitely go and use Unreal Engine tools to basically convert the animations to be compatible with the noodles themselves. So everyone that has spawned in today, we can actually go out here. This is another fun thing. Whenever I end the stream, we go to this little scene, and you can see everyone that spawned in there. You'll see the yeah. If I normally the overlay looks a little bit something more like this, so that little bottom bit usually won't show up. But yeah, that's the
that's so
ways that they
fun.
can
It's just
show
it's
up
like
all
a little
around the
party in
world.
space.
Totally, yeah. And
Um,
there's also, oh, sorry, go ahead.
well, I was just gonna ask, as you're running around, we're seeing all this beautiful, really vibrant art and this colorful world,
Yeah,
and I was wondering if you could talk about the inspiration behind it.
totally, yeah. So I'm Mexican American, and I wanted to definitely put a lot of my culture into the world. So Golita Rana, it's like a common saying that you say to children whenever they hurt themselves. It's like a little saying to kind of make them feel better. And so we have a whole bunch of these cute little frogs around here, because it's like tail of the frog is kind of what it roughly translates to. Yeah, exactly. Someone in chat said it's like sana sana kulita rana. Exactly. So we have lots of cute little frogs to represent that. And then we have a lot of custom made props in the world. So up here, you'll see we have a lot of papel picado, which is the paper. Well, it can be made out of paper, other materials where you cut out different patterns and everything. So we made custom designs to reflect my community and also my little character. You'll see a little face there, and that's made of. I have a little sidekick by the name of Headbutt, who's right here, and chat can spawn them to do little dances and stuff and go around. That's actually like before I used the VTuber, I had a little profile picture of a little arcade machine. So that's where they come from, and they're still a very big
Oh,
part of my channel. And we actually have another really cute little creature over here. Let me go here and see if this will go. So we have Limo. So Limo is this cute little puppy, and essentially I wanted a way to be able to show on stream all these different angles of Arcadia. So with this little puppy here, we can essentially, just go around and look at everything from a bird's eye view. And now you can see my VTuber at the bottom right there with the alpha captures that's being put on over. So that way we can see things from a whole bunch of different angles. And for Halloween, for instance, another fun thing that was added in from my friend Captain Steel Pants, they animated this for me as like a little surprise present, which is just a cute little animation of these little skeletons doing a little dance routine to the Monster Mash. And these are all custom made dances, and also some from the marketplace that we got as well.
I love all of this so much, and I'm wondering, I guess tossing back a little to some of the technical side, how was it implementing, right? You have your avatar, you have the overlays, and then you have the world itself. Are all of those pieces driven by Unreal Engine?
Yeah, so the actual overlay itself, like the UI elements and everything, that's all on OBS's side. But then everything else that you're seeing is all done just organically through Twitch. So if I'll go back here and then we'll go this way. So for instance, if I get gift subs, which is when someone pays for another person's gift subscription, little gift boxes will spawn down. So like if there's like 100 gift subs, like a whole bunch will go into the world and cover up the whole space. And then after a few seconds, they'll pop out. And then there's other things that happen
You need
too.
an
So
animation
for
of digging
instance,
out of the present.
no, I really do, for real. Another thing too is like when people, if there's bits, which is a form of like donating to the stream, or not donating, but tipping a streamer, then little coins will go around the world. We just saw a little heart go across the screen. That was for someone that had just followed. So yeah, lots of things that are just happening straight through Unreal Engine. And this is with the TwyWorks plugin. So the way that it works is Twitch has like a developer portal, and I go there to make a key, and I have to like authorize the ability for Unreal Engine to read information from my Twitch account. And then it can gather, basically things like Twitch username color, Twitch user messages, when an event happens. So like when a gift event happens, a raid event happens, and I essentially set up these different sequences through like Unreal Engine with the actual sequencer tool or with blueprints, and different aspects from Twitch trigger them, whether it's a message or a redemption through channel points, and all of that. And I'm able to, thankfully, like I can change scenes. Like in my specific chat, I can go and I can type X-Point customizer, and I set it up so that in Unreal Engine, it'll go to the customizer scene, and it'll actually change my OBS and everything to show all of this, where people can type X-Point Noodle in my chats again to spawn in their own little avatar if they want to. So yeah, it's pretty integrated straight into Unreal.
Yeah, so somebody's asking actually, is it all done with blueprints and there's no C++ here?
Yeah, that's correct. I think that's like my friend who works in animation with Unreal described it to me. He's like, yeah, Unreal Engine is perfect for artists like who like want to code. Like for me, it's such a convenient way to learn how to program, because I've never, like, the closest thing would be modifying like the HTML on my MySpace a long time ago, so having like a visual layout of blueprint, yeah. It was crazy. So yeah, I love how visual it is. It's very easy to digest that way.
Yeah, to me, when I was learning, so I came from an animation background, and when I first started dabbling in Unreal Engine, it was I can use blueprints, which felt more like, in some ways, like pseudocode, so that I could think about what I wanted to do without necessarily getting stuck on all the syntax. Now, not that Blueprint doesn't have its own sort of version or form of that in its own right, but that was much more accessible than like, okay, well, what do I call it? Plus, how exactly do I need to put this colon or this semicolon? And so I really liked the approachability of blueprints for that reason.
Totally. In fact, if you want, I could go ahead and show off some of like the more like the blueprints themselves a little bit. That way,
a little peek under the hood.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll go here, and then I'll go to open level blueprint. So the actual level blueprint itself is pretty straightforward. And here, this is like all of where I change all the colors. These are just a lot of set materials. But here, this is like the Twitch guts. So essentially, this is where the login sequence happens. So it's like, okay, we want to make sure that it is logging into my account in particular. And then we have different pathways to say whether it was connected or if it failed, just so that I know on my end. Also, there's been times where sometimes if I'm doing a really long stream, like a 12-hour stream, there's been instances where like my Unreal Engine for whatever reason lost connection to Twitch, so I would have to like restart the program. But this is actually a solution to that. So if it's like failed to log in, it'll retry and try to reconnect. That way we can avoid that hurdle. And right here, this is for like cheers. So like cheers are the bits, which is again a way to tip a streamer. So there's different outcomes. So it's like, okay, if it's between like 99 to 500 bits, it'll do like a small amount of coins will come out. And then if it's like between 500 to 1,000, then okay, then it's gonna do a larger amount of coins. So we can like fine tune it that way too, by using different type of nodes. So this is for the gift subs, where it's gonna spawn in the actual boxes depending on how many were gifted and the random rotation and the bounty box. So yeah, it's all very these are where all the messages come into. So like if someone redeems the color red, like the message goes here, and it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna go and activate the color red, so then it goes up here that way. So this is quite a lot. This is just like the level blueprint itself. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So some of your nodes literally look like a piece of art. So I do want to say that. But then, yeah, I feel like we could get you some arrays or some functions that might clean you up a little bit. But they are very beautiful. The chat is very, very proud of your blueprint. It is nice and tidy.
Yeah, so all the very nice and tidy one, that's all done from my friend Captain Steelpants, who I collaborated with. He's very tidy. I'm the more chaotic. I'm like, oh no, everything's going everywhere. But he has everything color coded. So Captain Steelpants is the one I collabed with, because basically I knew some pretty. Yeah, that's what I said to them too. I'm like, wow, it's so beautiful. I'm like, the way it's all geometric and everything. I'm like, it's stunning. So yeah, I worked with like 3D artists, 2D artists, and then a couple different programmers to help bring this to reality. Because a while back, Captain Steelpants, who's in chat right now, and myself, we worked on this little collaborative experiment basically for a Halloween level, where I had like a cow costume, and chat could spawn in. They could either choose to be a cow, an alpaca, a horse, or a goat. So this is after I did a like 12-hour stream. So we had a couple hundred people just roaming around in this little farm pit everywhere. But we got the basics done here, where people could choose one of 4 things. They would spawn in as their Twitch username color. They could do point jump to jump around in the world. And this is like, yeah, the very early bare bones beginning of what would eventually become a much more advanced version of the customizable Noodle robots that we've been showing up on stream today.
Oh, okay. So those cows were the predecessor to the.
Yeah, exactly. Totally.
I also think of like Unreal Engine in the content examples, or the hallways there that show off a lot of the samples and stuff. There's cows that spawn out of the particle examples too, and I always think of that cow. So yeah. I know. I think you included for another reason, but I was like, oh yeah, it's just a throwback to UE stuff. Totally.
Absolutely. And yeah, speaking of like just the actual design process, is basically I worked with this artist by the name of Parallax, and that's where we came up with like all these logistics basically. And we do a lot of skeletal mesh swapping between the different heads and torsos and legs, because when you go to customize your character, you can actually change the different head, top and bottom. And then also you can, in addition to changing the color, we have different cosmetics. So these were the actual 2D art of all that. And long in the very beginning, it looked like this. We had these little placeholders of just these little polygon creatures that were roaming around. And exactly. So we had Bob, Fred, Stan, and Stan. This was like our very first run through of this. So it's definitely come a long way, because this was earlier this year, and like we did the customizer scene earlier. You can see some placeholders are still here. So it's been a really great learning experience, and also just really cool to work with like the small team of artists and programmers that I've found thanks to Twitch and Twitter. And also we were talking about it earlier, but yeah, I always am peeking the Unreal Engine like forums and like Reddit to like find solutions to these like little quirks. I'm like, oh no, I'm like, this one thing's happening. I'm like, and sure enough, I'll find a post from like 5 years ago that fixes the exact problem I have. I'm like, oh, thank God. So I love that there's such a access of information out there, because a lot of the time if there's something I want to do, I feel like there's usually maybe not a whole tutorial, but at least some type of series of documentation out there that I can kind of like try to follow along with to accomplish what I want to do.
You talked about, meeting people through Twitch or Twitter or something to find a team. Like, what did you start searching for folks, or were you like, oh man, this art looks cool, and reached out to them? Like, how did you find, right? Because having a team
Yeah,
is super helpful and can be really a crucial part of making somebody successful. And so, how did you find the folks on your team?
totally. So for the first person that I collaborated with was their user handle is Hun Bun Art, and I was just looking for environmental artists on Twitter, and I was looking under the hashtag. It was like a portfolio day. It happens like every month where there's a bunch of devs and artists that show off their
Hmm.
portfolio.
Yeah.
And I found this person, and I was specifically looking for Unreal Engine environmental artists, and I found her. She was a recent graduate, and yeah, I reached out to them, told them about this idea that I had in this project, and they were really excited about it. So worked together, and they made this whole 3D space for me, and they really went above and beyond. They used like this whole I don't know what software they use, but it had like an actual floor plan that like architects would use and everything, and it was very legit.
Oh,
And
wow.
they set up like all the materials for me, thank goodness, because my understanding of materials in the game is like pretty bare bones. They're really sweet too, because they're a baker in real life as well. So they made me like a digital cake for my 10-year anniversary for Twitch, and it's still
Oh,
here. It was very nice of them to put that in here. I was like, oh wow. And then other people, yeah, Twitter, to be honest, mainly. I found a lot of people there. And then through complete coincidence, on Twitch, you can actually use like tags for your stream. So I put Unreal Engine as a tag for my stream. And that's how a couple Unreal Engine VTubers found me. And then I found like this little Discord of Unreal Engine VTubers. And then within that pool of people, I commissioned a couple individuals there to help me out with some more advanced blueprints, or I had some issues with like my 3D model and clipping, so I had like 3D artists that helped me out on how to make like blend shapes to like shrink certain parts of my model so that they don't like clip through, and just lots of like little tips and tricks that we share with each other. And we even have like a channel where we share blueprints with one another, so like that's been very helpful for all of this. Absolutely.
yeah. I love that, just sort of organically or and through outreach, right? Like on different channels, you just sort of found the people that fit and built your
Yeah.
own little space. Uh, yeah, folks have been asking, how are you doing the facial capture and the motion capture?
Oh, yeah. Totally. I have basically been using Live Link. So that was another thing I had to source out. So um yeah, if I everything's reading my face capture live right now. So if I like make like a happy face, like that'll come through. If I'm like make a sad face, like that should also um go in. Or if I'm just looking around, it'll actually pick up the direction. And we modified it so that the torso will kind of like bend around that way. There's like a little bit of movement because I don't have like motion capture or anything. But yeah, all through the Apple AR kit. So it's like 52 blend shapes that you have to make for a character model. I believe that if anyone in chat has used a MetaHuman, they come just inherently built with them. But it's basically different vowels and different shapes that you make with 3D model, and then using ARKit, it blends them all together as it reads your facial like expressions on your iPhone or any other camera that's compatible with that particular lens to read the facial recognition. And yeah, that's all within Unreal as well. And the AR kit, I had to commission all 52 shapes for that because I didn't know how to make those, and if I tried, like it would look kind of funny. So I think that's a whole art within itself to try to make it look more convincing and actually kind of come across through like conveying the different emotions that you're going through.
Huh? Makes sense. Um, how many people do you have on your team?
So I have been, oh gosh, for the most part, my biggest collaborator has been Captain Steel Pants. That is their Twitch username. That's who I've reached out to the most, and then just lots of like little art throughout the last couple years. I would just because I always needed people for different things. It's like um I learned very quickly. I had a 3D model made, and then I was like, okay, cool. I got a 3D model. Like, let me go put it in Unreal, and then I realized, like, oh, I just have a 3D model. Like, it's not rigged. It's not. I can't really do anything with it yet. So then I had to find like more of like a technical artist to then take that 3D model and give it a skeleton and all that, and then the AR kit. So it kind of just like leads one thing to another. But I would say I've probably reached out to I think about approximately 10 people that I've worked with consistently, because once I found like a really good 3D artist I liked working with, I just kept going back with them over and over again. Or and then also I had a personal like a friend of mine now who I worked with to make a lot of city props. So um I mentioned how I'm Mexican American, and I actually have some artwork over here that I can show. This is where I grew up in Mexico for the first few years of my life in Ensenada, and we recreated this to fit my new virtual world here. And
I love
yeah,
it so much.
yeah, I love putting that extra little personal touch into the world. I think it definitely makes all the difference. And even though I am using a pre-made city, being able to customize it with all these props and also collaborating with another Hispanic artist was really great. And we were able to make all these fun pieces to bring a lot of life to the world through different textures. This was like an arcade that I used to go to as a child, so we used that logo as inspiration for the arcade that's in the world. We got little pinatas around there, all these planters with custom tiles, just yeah, everything. So a lot of the city has been transfigured to really be super customizable, and I was able to change a lot of the pre-existing textures and everything, because before it was more of a Japanese inspired town. So I changed a lot of the aspects to look more like a North American suburb city hybrid space.
I think that was one of the things that was really awesome is you're talking about how you leaned on these marketplace assets. So one, you're saving yourself a lot of the work of building a city from scratch. So you can start with the foundation, kind of lay out your city, do your Sims life and build your town, but then you have the opportunity to go back in and customize them, and you've truly made it your own. It's not like, oh, you slapped a couple materials on it and called it a day. Which like if that works for people, that's totally fine. But you've really like embodied the space and put in a lot of elements that are so personal to you that I think really gives like a lot of charm to the city. Um, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
It's great.
for sure. When I was younger, I remember just going to, like, the little corner store all the time. So it was great that this one had one. And so yeah, like you said before, there was like no signage here or anything. So I just put a bunch of random stuff there, and then I put some like Mexican sweet bread in here too that I had commissioned. Because and quite detailed actually. Yeah, I love it. And then we have these traditional Mexican wooden toys that like my grandpa used to bring me whenever he would visit us from Mexico when we were in the States. And so yeah, there's exactly like I advocate absolutely 100% for using those pre-made assets for animations or everything, because they're so flexible and you can use them in so many ways. Like for Halloween, for instance, I'm like, oh no, I'm like, it's coming up. I didn't have anything, so I had these little like Halloween decorations that I just whipped up. I'm like, let me find some fog real quick and just put that there because it was just so fast. This year went by so quickly, I feel, so I had to like frantically just put all that, and we had these fun little skeletons. Basically these are just doing different animations, and I'm just freeze framing them in certain things, so I have them in different poses. So yeah, sometimes you have to be kind of creative and just kind of flexible to get them in different ways for whatever your case use is.
Oh, I did want to ask, I didn't get around to it earlier, but when we were kind of
Yeah.
talking to about the noodles, and so you did this whole experiment with the cows and you created the little mini farm, but like, or farm. where did the idea for that come from in the first place? Like, it's such a
Oh, the
unique
farm
of, oh, I
itself.
want people to, yeah, like spawn in and
Oh
make their own
yeah.
characters while I'm streaming, you know.
Sure. Here, I will go back over here to this screen, over here. And then, let me see. Sorry, let me get my preview open because I'm walking around with a black screen. Okay. So yeah, this whole idea came to be because I had a lot of fun making my own avatar. Let me go back to here. That one wants to have another chance. That's what I was trying to do. Yeah, I wanted people to have that experience of being able to like join me in a 3D world because I just thought that aspect seemed really unique and I hadn't really seen it too much on Twitch before. So being able to put everyone in a farm was nice. It was like a cool example to just give it a test run. But when we were looking at that screenshot earlier, it was very crowded in there. So that's when that
Right.
idea of like, okay, having like a really large city and having it populated would be one thing, but letting chat to be able actually to physically be there, I felt was um a really cool idea. I wasn't sure if it was going to be possible at all. At first, I was really going to just have people more so just like in the room as little miniature like toy robots that were going to be like on the table. Like that was like my initial
Aw.
plan,
Uh-huh.
which was still a cute idea. But yeah, I wanted to kind of just take it to the next level, and then that's where we had the idea essentially to have people spawn in different spots and do different actions. So yeah, if we go here, you'll see there's all these like little cubes here, and these are essentially like little spawn points. So when someone goes here, um, essentially, as long as it's a robot that goes here, it'll play a specific animation for this certain spot. So that way, there was actually a bug that we had where if my model would walk over any of these cubes, they just didn't know what to do and they would just stop. They would just like not know how to function. So we had to add that condition. It's like, okay, if it is specifically a noodle that makes contact with this bounding box, like only they can do this particular action, because otherwise, yeah, my model was just causing them to just stand still.
Like,
Yeah, I love that visual representation of just like chat being able to be seen all together. Like if we go back to this scene, I will go back and show everyone together in space again. And I just think this is just such a fun way to see like a physical representation of just like how many people have decided to stop by the stream today, because this is a little off topic, but like sometimes people are scared of streaming because they'll be like, oh well, if I stream, like maybe no one's gonna watch, or like, oh maybe I'll like, or sometimes people will be like, oh I only have like 10 viewers each stream or whatever. But I'm like, 10 people is like a lot of people. Like if you go into a room with 10 other folks, like that's intimidating. That's a lot
I was
of
just thinking that. I was
individuals.
like, I don't often have 10 people at my house like hanging out, so
Yeah. So when you see like nearly like a couple hundred robots just roaming in space, like wow, like that's kind of wild, like how many people are all together in this space right now. So just I think seeing that physical representation is definitely another aspect of it that I really enjoy for sure.
love that. That's great. Oh, we have a question.
Sure.
How do you end up testing these new
Oops.
functionalities without
My
streaming?
bad.
Or do you
Oh
just let the
yeah.
viewers be the guinea pigs?
A little bit of both. Thankfully, Unreal has a lot of really helpful tools where we can actually test run things. So we'll set up hotkeys that will spawn people. Let me I'm trying to remember the hotkey for it. But for instance, like in that scene where we were down here with the actual this customizer scene, for instance, we have a command. I can't remember the hotkey, but we can essentially spawn placeholders. So we actually tested that quite extensively. We did an instance where we spawned 300 people to enter the queue to cycle through this, because we really wanted to just push it to the limits, and just see like is this going to be okay? Like, can it handle it if I get like a really large raid and that many people join in? And thankfully the answer was yes. There was a couple things that had to be tweaked, but yeah, a lot of the time we're able to essentially we have we have literal dummies we call them dummies, and we can use them for different things just to test them out, make sure that they're working. But I feel like in a way, um, the it's always so nerve-wracking but exciting when I debut something new on the stream. I'm like, oh, like y'all can try doing this new thing, and then of course, like a few tries in, it suddenly breaks, and you're like, oh, because once you have like a live example, things definitely change quite a bit. This was definitely the trickiest one because in this particular scene, we have 12 people at a time that can be on there, and they can all change their avatar. They can all change their main alternate eye color and all that. So one hurdle we had in the beginning was if people spawned in too quickly at a time, people would override one another. So like, let's say you wanted to change your character to be red, and like I wanted mine to change to be blue. Like suddenly our colors would be switched because both of the messages were sent at the exact same millisecond. So it didn't quite know what to do. So we ended up making a queue. So when people do all these different commands and everything, it essentially gets put into a queue, and there's a little bit of delay. We force a delay, like very minimal delay. That way we ensure like, okay, Unreal has enough time to process this from Twitch's API that this particular character belongs to this username. So that way those commands only work with that person. So I think that's one of those instances where we couldn't have known that when we were testing it out, because it's like, that's such a specific problem. And a lot of the times it's like, honestly, us scratching our head like, why isn't this working? Like, what's going on? And of course it's just something silly like a node forgot to be connected back, or we forgot to compile and save, or something small like that. But no,
A lot of
thankfully we're
very
able to test. Yeah.
classic development, encounters where it's like,
Totally.
well, okay, it worked fine in this small scale scenario, but sometimes scaling up, or you just don't know in a live environment. So
Yeah, it's always such a gamble. Thankfully, most of the time things have worked fine. One other instance of this, just since we're on topic of it, is so when someone gets an item, they come out of a noodle cup, and this is where this actually happens. I think I can go ahead and try to have it happen over here. Let me see. I'll buy a frog item and try to get it to show up. So that's the little animation where it comes out of nowhere, and then they come out of the cup. So it works great. But the problem was, one thing I learned is that because of where the camera was positioned, and because it was so underground of everything else from where my like character was placed,
Mhm.
they would break. Like it would only render their head sometimes, or sometimes it would only render their legs. And I was like, wait, what's happening? And I thought there was something wrong with the model for the longest time, but no, it turns out there was like a bounding box or something where for optimization purposes, if something is so far away, it only renders like a small portion of it, or if it's like not on the screen enough. So we fixed it by just like moving the camera a little bit, and then that was solved. So yeah, sometimes it's just like the most random small little things, but yeah, it's really interesting just how as time goes on, you kind of keep these things in the back of your mind, and you're able to thankfully fix them as time goes on.
Well, and just familiarity with it can give you like a better hunch or understanding of what may be wrong, right? The first time you're doing it, you have no idea. But
Yes.
if you've done enough development or build enough projects, you're getting to the point where you've seen some of it before or something similar to it, and you can make some guesses as to, oh, hey, where do I start debugging this issue or figuring out what is wrong?
Yeah, and like what one issue that it's so because it does uses Twitch's API. Whenever they update it, sometimes some things just break that are kind of out of our control. So that has also been kind of like a realization I made. I'm like, oh wow, I'm like, okay, like if I'm using someone's API, like it can just straight up break out of nowhere, and kind of have to go back in and fix up some things that have just been changed. So like, yeah, it's really interesting because a lot of things that I didn't even realize could potentially happen have been occurring, and yeah, it's all been a very big learning process.
Do you find that when if Twitch updates and breaks a plugin that you're using or an API that you're referencing, do you normally go in and have to do that fix yourself, or are you waiting for like third-party folks to provide updates so that it's, you know, you know, compliant with what your needs are?
Yeah, sometimes I'm able to fix it myself because even when like I update Unreal Engine, for instance, if I have to go up like a version or whatever, that sometimes I will be able to figure out because I'm like, oh, like this node is just out of date, or like this just doesn't function anymore, or they change it. Because sometimes that happens where a plugin like a node will suddenly be named something else. I'm like, oh wow. I'm like, okay, I mean, this is what this is called now, so I got to just change all of these to this new one. But for this most recent one, this one that involves like the noodles, that one I did have to reach out to the third party source because the code was just so foreign to me that I was like, oh, I'm like, okay, I'm like, I could probably figure it out. It would just take me a long time. I'm like, you know what? Let me just go and commission this folk to update this instead because since I do have a full time job and everything, and I ideally, yeah, I would love to get to the point where my main biggest concern is just hitting play and going like live and just kind of doing more of the entertainment aspect. Not to say that I don't like the dev aspect, it's really cool, I love it, but just because of my limited amount of time, I do have to outsource it periodically. But if it's like a smaller edition that I'm adding, like for instance, one thing that I did, if we go over, oop, not that button, excuse me. If we go here, I think this is, yeah, I like did this effect with basically where the room gets flooded. So like that was something I wanted to add at one point, and I'm like, I want to play around with water and stuff, and like because I remember I saw Unreal Engine 5 showcase of like Niagara, the like liquid emulation or whatever. Then it came with like a whole bunch of pre-made ones, so I used that with sequencer to just like flood the room and then just like go back down. So I also made the ability to like be able to like hold my controller, or we showed it
Hmm.
off earlier, but how people can change, you know, the color of the environment. So there's a lot of like smaller things that I've added. Another thing that I added into is we were talking about the Sims earlier, and in the Sims you can have a there's like a little, they call it a plumb bob, it's this little green diamond. So I put that up there and put the little particle effects and when it rotates and all that, or you know, if there's like confetti for when we're celebrating something that happens. So I can do, I like doing a lot more of like the smaller little um, just random redemptions that people can do. And the other thing that I had to learn was basically being able to get up and walk around. Learning this was definitely a bit of a process, but thankfully I had found a lot of documentation out there on how to make a character pawn move and changing their speed, being able to jump around. We have this like dash ability just because the city's so big. So I added this so that we can just like get from point A to point B a little bit faster. And then I've also done just things for convenience sake. Like if I want to go back to the desk, I added this ability to just warp here. I also have this for my starting soon screen so that whenever we're about to start the stream, you see my character here just kind of playing on the couch for a bit, and we have this little pet animation and this whole sequence and everything I set up. So I do a lot more of like just kind of these small little visual motifs, but then when it comes to the more logistics of like, oh, we need to be able to spawn these characters and save them and change the color and all that. The way that I got involved with that was more so like the materials. So I learned how to apply like different shaders and everything to the actual characters themselves, because before they were just like a solid color and they didn't look too visually interesting. They kind of looked more like this, where they were just like a flat color. And I do a
Oh,
lot of the other like graphic work. So it's like I make like the alpha masks and the materials to be able to be changed to different colors with the color picker and everything. And I did all of the like actual like prop design of like not the actual 3D models necessarily, but just like placing everything where that needs to be and putting all these textures everywhere because all of this used to be empty. So just going around and doing a lot of like the set dressing, like kind of level design in that aspect, all the lighting and everything. Where now, sorry, I probably should show an actual example of the noodles. See if I go out here, we can probably find some. Yeah, so here you'll see like this one has actual like cell shading to it in a way. I
Mhm.
don't know if cell shading is the correct term. Oh no, they'll be fine. We had to remove collision because sometimes that would happen where the bus would just take them away and we'd be like, where did they go? And then yeah, they would just be in the tunnel at the end. So
Oh, I was like, if it's a loop, they could just scoop them around the city.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think just having that little extra touch of just this basic shading that goes around goes a long way. And oh yeah, we added like the visor so that way it's like a missive and they kind of glow in the dark a little bit more, so that way they show up a little bit more.
They pop, yeah.
So yeah, they pop. And I have a lot of like I make a lot of really, I don't have any of the sketches, but on a scratch piece of paper, or not paper, but like an empty document, I'll just kind of like whip up some cosmetic ideas and I'll hand it over to the artist and they'll embellish it. And I get like, yeah, lots of reference images and everything. So I just do a lot of like more of inspiration through finding a lot of different elements from other games that I like, and trying to incorporate these different things into my world. And oh yeah, so you'll see this one here, Dark Author. They're one of the ones that's programmed to actually walk around the city a little bit. Oh, and also I totally forgot about this. We can actually recruit people to follow us. I totally forgot about that. So if anyone's near me, I can actually recruit them for to go around the actual city itself, and they'll just follow me wherever I go, which is very fun.
There's a little part of it I'm gonna throw back. So I used to love playing Sonic Battle Adventure 2, and I'll admit it was not for the levels, but it was for the little Chow
Yeah,
Chows.
yeah, the
And I
Tao
loved,
Garden.
yeah, it's like I loved interacting with them and like, the parades and the little music, or you could like whistle and they come running over to you. And so the fact that it's like they'll run around with you was totally,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that was it. That was it.
No, that's totally where a lot of the inspiration that I got for the cosmetics, because in that game, depending on how you raise them, they either got like, they could get angel horns or devil horns. So yeah,
Oh
that's
yeah.
where those little cosmetics come from.
Chaos
So
Chow,
yeah.
100%.
Totally seeing them all and like seeing what people pick and what colors and items, like it's super fun. And yeah, we can see all of them just floating there. And yeah, that I love all those little mini games from that series as well.
Mhm. So there's a chat question, and they're asking, as
Sure.
someone who is new to programming, what was the first thing that you looked at in Unreal which made you think, this is accessible to me? And thanks for the question. Like that's that feels like a question that we would ask. So great job, chat.
Yeah. So I think the first thing that I saw that was pretty approachable for me, um like the very first thing I did, actually, let me go over here. Let me go to VTuber model, blueprint class. I think, or actually, I could show it off in this level blueprint. Um, I looked up on how to change like the color of something. So setting like materials, that I think was like the first thing I ever did. And it helped me understand a lot of the basics of blueprints, because when I set one out and I was watching the tutorial on how to do it, I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, I have a pre-existing material on my character already. And so now if I want to set another material, I just like, go out from the node and look for that. And then being able to learn like, well, the program needs to know where we're going to go, like what are we going to change. So in this case, this is changing a monitor in my room. So you got to like go to get the monitor, put it in here. So it's like, okay, now it's, again, since this is very visual for me, it was easy to understand. And then it's like, which material on that object do you want to change? And I want to change the first one, and I want to change it to this one. So just doing that alone like made me really, something clicked. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I'm like, okay, like this is very easy and straightforward. And so then I was like, I wonder if I can do that with light color. And then sure enough, I looked up, I'm like, oh, there is one with light color. I'm like, okay, awesome. And then it got a little bit more advanced, where then I was learning about like dynamic materials, where I could then basically set like a base. So I'd be like, okay, I have this eyes, and instead of making like 10 materials of a red eye, blue eye, green eye, all the different colors of my eye colors, like I can just make an eye texture that's grayscale, and then I can put a parameter and I could be like, okay, whenever it's red, it's going to change to a red eye color. And then when I did that, I'm like, oh no, the whole eyeball's red. That's terrifying. So then I learned, like, well, how can I fix that? And then, it's just like a lot of Google results, to be honest, and a lot of resources that are out there that thankfully there's just so many resources out there that I feel like anytime I go to YouTube and I'm like, Unreal Engine, like change lights in a group or something. And then sure enough, there's like probably 2 or 3 videos out there just because the software has been out for so long and there's just such a really great resources out there for free. And I think also the more that you do these random little tutorials, the more you realize how much everything is interconnected and how you can basically reuse information you learned from the past to future things. And like the more you do it, the more practice you have, the better you get at it. And yeah, I especially with like the whole animation states and everything with like my actual character model, like that's just I've done it so many times now for like the walk state, the sitting state, running, flying, and all that. So I can just do it now without having to like go and look up the tutorial now. Like now it's just like ingrained into my memory. And I've gotten to the point now where instead of like, oh, I want to do this thing, instead of like looking up online, I'm like, okay, I can kind of figure it out, because at this point I've used so many nodes that I'm like, if I want, for instance, like the coin effect, where I wanted it to spawn coins on my character model whenever I had different donations, like that was a whole thing that I had essentially taught myself on how to do. Oh, I when I have the blueprints up, it lags. I just realized. Sorry about that. So yeah, I think basic fundamentals. That one YouTuber I mentioned earlier, their name is Make Games with Katie. She does a very basic blueprint tutorial where you make a door, and when the character gets close to it and it enters the bounding box, the door opens, and you go past it, then it closes. And like that was another one where I actually applied that to this door here. So yeah, when I get close within this box, the door opens and closes. So
I mean, doors are one of the trickiest parts of gaming, so if you've got that figured out, leaps and bounds ahead.
Yeah, and it's like it's not too bad, because oh my god, well, when I followed the tutorial, it was a little rough because it was only going to the predetermined area, so like the actual access would only go for that one particular door. But then I learned about, well, you can make blueprint classes or character blueprints so that wherever it's relative to this area, it'll just go the opposite direction. So that way I didn't have to have all these different coordinates everywhere. So I think that's another aspect of it, is sometimes you learn the very bare bones basics of how to do like one function in one particular space. And then you learn more advanced tricks on where like, well, I can kind of automate this stuff so that wherever I place a door, it'll just behave the way I want it to, without having to go and get the world coordinates and put them in each different spot. So like,
right.
Again, this is just me I just went and found a bunch of like pretty random tutorials out there. And now for anyone that's interested in VTubing specifically, there's a couple of VTuber Unreal Engine tutorials out there too that people can find that definitely help get you running with the very basics. And thankfully you don't, like, I know I've been talking about how I've been commissioning a lot of people for different things, but there's a lot of free to use assets out there. I highly encourage you, even if you've been thinking about game dev and you haven't like done it, like just make an Epic Games account and like redeem the free for the month stuff. Like I love every single like first week of the month, because I'm like, oh cool, like free Unreal assets, let's go. And I always go there, and like honestly those are really good learning tools too, because sometimes I'll find, there was one that was free a couple months ago, and it's like the press E to interact with world, and I just booted that up, and even though I haven't incorporated yet, I just went and I looked at all the blueprints. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, this makes sense. I'm like, this is how they do this, so that they press this button, and this character does this sequence in this timeline, and blah blah blah. And like, I get to kind of see it, and it just analyzing it helps out a lot.
Yeah, I think some of the pieces that you sort of touched on, even in someone in chat kind of reflected what you're saying, is like, there's so much value in having a project that one you want to make versus just sort of.
Yeah.
Going through, there is value certainly in going through like courses or learning some of the mechanics or the foundation. But I think at the end of the day, make something, right? Like that's one of the reasons we really love the game
Yeah.
jams is it's just like you're jumping in and you're making something, and instead of having the pool of here's all the things I need to learn and I don't know, that's just too much to bite off, right? Like you can't take all of that
Yeah.
down. But if you're like, okay, well, you wanted to work on the noodles. And so it's like, okay, well, what do I want this character to do? Well, I want them to be able to wander around, and then you can think about animation. So you're like, okay, I want to be able to change the colors. That's a very specific thing that you can start to figure out. And then like those are little wins, right? Once you figure that out, you're like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, I can do this. And then you get the next thing, and you're slowly building up those skills and your abilities as a developer versus just being like overwhelmed with everything that you need to learn, right? Like you can't learn it all at once, so taking it in those little chunks, I think, is very helpful to success.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point because initially my very first goal wasn't even necessarily all like this is just years of just me spending so much time to this. But yeah, my first very goal was literally just getting a 3D model that I could get that had facial capture. And once I hit that, like you said, okay, cool, I got this milestone. Like now, where can I take it from here? So I think that's such a great way to really tackle projects because otherwise, yeah, you're gonna get really overwhelmed and it might give up before you get to that point. So I
What
definitely
I
agree with that.
thought was also a cool moment is, you showed the scene on the couch where it's like, oh, this is my weight screen, or
Oh
this
yeah.
is my, like, this is just loading it. But it's still mocap, right? Like, as you were chatting, it's still expressive and it's still like,
Yeah.
I don't know if you normally sit here on your waiting to play and like animate them or not, but the fact that it's built that way and it's there and it's working, so you optionally can do that. So you can use this avatar in so many different scenes or scenarios, and it's like you don't have to rebuild that functionality. You're not reanimating them, and I don't mean like bringing back from the dead. Like
Yeah.
they're just living, and they continue to use that functionality across whatever part of your map that you're in.
Absolutely. And well, let me go back over here and I'll show you. So this was because we're just talking about like this is what this all looked like in the beginning when I just had um this little box here is all that I had initially where I didn't even have a whole like space. This was just floating in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I think that's again just for like how accessible the marketplace is and being able to merge things is really super helpful. And I think also just writing down ideas on paper or like photoshopping stuff helps a lot. Like this is how I conveyed of what I kind of wanted. This was just like the concept art of one of the robots. And I'm like, okay, I want the username here and I want the text chat to go that way. And I also have basically made this little mock-up that was pretty bare bones, but it got the idea across. I'm like, okay, I want them to be able to go into these different little spots and I want them to be able to change their color. So yeah, I think just writing down your plans and the things that you want to achieve is very helpful in stuff like this as well, because I had a whole thing where I had like my to-do list where I essentially was like, okay, well, I need all of these assets. Like these are the ones that are currently in progress. These are the ones that are completed, and tackling things in little bite-sized pieces definitely helps. This is when I first launched the city, I was having some really horrible frame rates because I didn't realize I wasn't using any levels of detail. So that was the whole thing. I'm like, okay, well, how can I optimize my world? So I looked up a few things on how to, like, if you're getting a low frame rate in your project, like what could the reasoning be? It's like maybe you have too many lights, maybe there's just too much geometry going on. So like that has also been really helpful learning just optimization. And this is when I first imported these little placeholder models, and everyone's got to start somewhere, and this is what they all looked like in the very, very beginning a while back.
Love it. So cute. Um, Chat was wondering, are there any unique computer hardware requirements that you've hit for VTubing versus
Oh.
classic gameplay?
Yeah. So I thankfully have been able to do this with my pre-existing software that I already had. I thankfully already had an iPhone because I specifically do need an iPhone for the AR kit and the live capture. Um, I would say that right now I am looking into investing into a two PC setup just because I can do this pretty comfortably with older games, but with newer games, like for instance, I played Baldur's Gate 3 with this and a couple other newer releases, and it literally overheated my computer so much to the point where it shut off. So
Oh
I was like,
no.
oh, I'm like, okay. I'm like, all right. I'm like, maybe pushing it the limits a little bit too much. So obviously my usage is very extreme. Like there's just so much logic going on, and this whole world is really massive. So but if you wanted to get into VTubing with Unreal Engine, where in the past I had literally just a green screen behind my avatar, that was no problem, and I was able to run any game that I wanted to. In fact, I made a special level in Unreal Engine where it's just my avatar and there's nothing else. And then I played Baldur's Gate 3 with my 3D model, but I didn't have the city and all of that because yeah, rendering it was just too powerful to do both at the same time.
So have you scoped it out, for the audience? What would your two computer setup look like? How would you have those two speaking to each other?
Yeah.
Or do you, yeah.
So the computer that I'm using right now would definitely be used as the one that I would still use Unreal with because it's totally capable of still doing that. And then yeah, I'd probably use some kind of a capture card device to stream from the newer PC, and on the secondary PC that I would get, that's where I would play the actual games. And that way kind of had two of them rendering their own different pieces because again, most games I can do all on one PC, but just with the rate that all these cool new games are coming out and I want to play them, yeah, I gotta definitely make sure to accommodate that so that it doesn't crash or have like a low frame rate.
Right. Well, so I have to ask, for Baldur's Gate 3, what class are you playing to start?
Oh, so yeah, oh my god, I was obsessed. I'm still obsessed with that game. I have like 300 hours in it. The first time I played, I did a paladin. Never played Dungeons and Dragons before or anything. Immediately broke my oath without realizing it, so I was an oath breaker paladin, and I just like, okay, I guess this is me now. And then my second playthrough, I did a Dark Urge playthrough as a monk, and that was really fun.
Nice, nice. Just thought I'd figure it out. I'm about 125 hours in on my first playthrough, and I'm like, well,
Yeah.
clearly I'm going to get a lot of mileage out of this game, so it's a good time.
I will say,
You can
like,
totally bring some of those
after
elements into your stream, too.
yeah, I will say, like, after having done so much in Unreal now, it's like it gives me such more of appreciation for like any game, whether it's indie or AAA, and just going in my mind, I'm like, wow, I'm like all these characters and just all this programming, and like I definitely see it from a different light now, where before I really didn't. Like before I'm like, oh, this is cool, like oh my god, this big open world and I'm doing all these fun things, but like now I'm just thinking of just the scale of everything with all these different games that I play. I'm like, oh my goodness. I'm like, just the time and dedication that all of this takes is very inspiring for sure.
I mean, there's a reason those credits lists are pretty long.
Yeah, for real.
Let's see. Someone's asking, they felt like starting a multiplayer project in an UE was a little, overwhelming. And do you have
Yeah.
tips or tricks for how to get started in that space or building a game that has multiplayer?
Oh, multiplayer. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, so with me, because like I right now have the very bare bones where people are able to, spawn in their avatars and customize them and everything as we've seen. So one thing that I really want to do next year is, yeah, being able to have people participate in a game. For anyone that uses Twitch, you might be familiar with Marbles on Stream, which that is a little game where people can drop in a little marble and they like try to get to the end, and whoever gets there wins. So I would love to do something like that where everyone like races one another or some type of mini game. So I don't like I think having just like one, like I always start off with like, okay, I want to do this just on one little test map, So for like the way that I want to tackle that is just not even have any assets. Like I would literally probably just use like basic polygon and just have like a long strip, and I'm like, okay, like I have all these people on the left side, I want to get them all to the right. Like, how can I accomplish that? And then say, okay, well, now that they have their like AI to set up to make that pathway, so now it's like, well, now we need a win condition. How do we know like how to track who's going to be the first one that makes it and wins? So like then that would be my second thing. So I think just taking the big project and just taking it down into smaller bite-sized pieces would be the best. So it's like if you're making a first-person shooter, it's like, okay, well, what's going to be the objective? Is it going to be something more like Overwatch where it's like team-based composition, or is it going to be more like free-for-all? So I think just narrowing down all these decisions and then just making a pipeline and just kind of deciding, okay, like this is the path I need to take, and now I know where to start. Because I think just figuring out where to start sometimes can be the most intimidating aspect when you're presented with a million tools and a blank space and you're like, uh-oh, now what?
Very good advice. Yep. Start small, get your pieces working, and then just keep layering it on. But there's also a lot of really, seen some really nice multiplayer tutorials online, so definitely do a search for that.
Yeah.
You know, if it's the networking code piece that's tricky to you, I don't know if he's updated, but Exy or Cedric Neukirchen did a really wonderful, I mean, I used it years ago, and to try and understand client versus server, if that's the element that's tripping you up, or if it's other pieces. Yeah, break it down and get started.
I know I keep saying it, but also like I use the marketplace mainly for props and like particle effects, but I have like kind of just poked around the blueprint section on occasion, and yeah, there's people that make like templates for like prop hunt type of games or a whole bunch of other multiplayer kind of things that are pretty affordable, to be honest. I was like pretty shocked. I'm like, oh wow, I'm like, there's a lot of stuff here, and a great template to base off of, because I guess unless you really want to make everything by scratch, but you know, I'd say there's no shame in definitely going out there and getting a template and building off of that.
Yeah, templates are a great source, because just like you were talking about earlier, like you got the press E to interact, and we're able to deconstruct its code. It's like it doesn't mean these templates you couldn't use as a foundation and modify or adjust to whatever your needs are. So
yeah, one thing I was just gonna say is like one thing that I really liked is there's a lot of erosion kind of quality, I think that's what they call, or erode materials, basically, where there's like this transitional effect where I can go from like one outfit to another with like this kind of like not particle, but just like this like little image effect. So that was one of those things where I basically had a template given like to me that I had, and I just took it and then I put it to be able to change and add different aspects of my VTubers outfit here. And I think it just, yeah, it's like a nice little touch. And then I was able to customize it because I'm like, oh, well, I don't want this particular effect. I'm like, I'm going to just change the color to be blue. And yeah, and that was easy to set up within like a couple of days, which was not too bad.
yeah. Oh, here's one I'm curious about. So you mentioned earlier that you've been a streamer for over 10 years now, and you've really been a VTuber for the last couple. So you've sort of watched how streaming has evolved over time. I'm wondering, how do you feel like these advancements or changes in technology shape the way you stream, and how you see that sort of, you know, changing or, you know, exploring in the what you want to explore in the next like few years?
Yeah. I streamed on Twitch before Twitch existed, back when it was Justin TV. My account's really old, and yeah, I've been a Twitch partner for 10 years, but I've been streaming for more like 15 years. It's been a while, and yeah, the whole ecosystem has definitely changed quite a bit. It's kind of wild to just see the scale to which some streamers can get to, for sure, where they have literally tens of thousands of people tuning in to watch. So for me, I've always used it more as like a casual experience. Like I, at one point, used to be a full-time streamer, but now I do it more as a hobby. And for me, honestly, entering VTubing specifically with Unreal Engine and getting this like excitement over making this 3D space that everyone can enter, and this has definitely reignited my passion to continue streaming. Not that I had any necessary plans to stop or anything, but I was just like really excited to keep going. And so when I look at the future, I mentioned how I'm like, okay, well now I want like in the future to be able to play little mini games with people in chats with their avatars, and like I want to definitely go and enhance a couple things, because like right now, for instance, when someone resubscribes, there's an on-stream alert that I have, but I would love it so that when someone like resubscribes or they follow or whatever, like their actual avatar shows up and does something in some capacity. So like right now when I'm, have gift subs presence fall down, which is cool, but I think it'd be fun to take it to the next level where they're like actually showing up and like they're the ones like throwing them in the air everywhere, So I think there's like a lot of ways to incorporate the noodles in fun ways. And another idea that I've had is like there's a thing that a lot of streamers do where there's the redemption. It's like the first redemption. So it's like whenever a streamer goes live, like you rush to go there and try to claim it first because like you're the first person that got there. So I think having like a visual representation of that in the world would be kind of fun, where like the first person that got there is like on a special little like, I don't know, pedestal in like the world or something, like, or maybe they have like a little crown above their head or something because they were there for the first for the day or whatever. Yeah, so I think there's a lot of room to play and experiment, and I think the really fun thing about Unreal is just the fact that like just about anything is possible, especially like if you really utilize blueprints. Like there's no limit. I feel like you can really do anything. It's like like we have people that are skydiving from the air randomly, and like that was just something that was all made pretty easily with the pre-existing skydiving asset that we found on the marketplace and everything. So like I want to be able to we've been supporting the feature by adding more cosmetics. So we launched with 5 initially, and then for Halloween we launched another 5, and then early December I'll be launching another batch of like more kind of winter inspired cosmetics that people can redeem.
Fun.
Yeah, and I
That'll
think
be
just also
really
like
exciting.
it will, yeah. And I like right now the whole space is decorated. I haven't taken down the Halloween decorations yet, but as the years goes on, like I would love to keep changing this for winter, maybe experimenting with like snow particles and trying to maybe mess around with shaders to make like the windows look more frosted, or in springtime maybe having like cherry blossoms like blowing in the wind and stuff. So I think just like with the environment, a lot of like seasonal things and holidays and everything like that will be another fun way to continue supporting all of this. And oh yeah, you'll see we have some place, we were talking about this earlier, and because the question was asked like, oh, how do you like test things out, like sometimes it's the chat that's the guinea pigs.
Yeah.
So one example, oh shoot, I don't know, I think my capture might have stopped working. I'm so sorry, but yeah, that was me spawning in a bunch of noodles there. Yeah, I will try to restart my Unreal. I think I might have got frozen there.
Yeah, they're calling out. It looks like you're froze. But I guess in the meantime, while
sure, I'll reboot this real
the
quick.
community is super excited about what you've been showing us today, and they're wondering if you and or some members of your team would be open to making like a little tutorial series about how you set it up, or walking through more explicitly like the setup to make sure that the avatar is working and those kinds of elements.
Yeah, that's something that I've wanted to look into for a while, like because there is a couple resources out there where you can kind of get the bare bones of a VTuber setup in Unreal Engine. But yeah, I would definitely love to do that. I know there's a couple tutorials out there on how to actually have like specifically we're using the TwyWorks plugin. So if you on YouTube, I know there's a couple TwyWork tutorials out there that will help out with that. Also, I apologize. It was my OBS that crashed, so I'm getting that up as fast as I can.
Take that, OBS.
I'll restart both though, just in case. But yeah, I would say also the um on Twitch specifically, I talked about how you can search streams by tags, and yeah, if you look up specifically the Unreal Engine tag, that's how I've been able to find a couple of VTubers that way, and you can definitely find quite a few helpful starting points there.
Do you have some folks that were a big source of inspiration for you, or that you followed and encouraged you to either try out UE or have worked with you? Are there any folks that you'd want to give a shout out to or encourage the community to check out to see?
Yeah, sure. So I did mention Captain Steel Pants, who is currently in chat, and they do stream their Unreal Engine dev stuff. It's like, I'll type it like this in chat. So they do stream on occasion, and they basically sometimes they'll do dev stuff on stream, and then sometimes they'll play games. But they did all of the Noodle programming in the actual in my actual world. And then oh, here we go. I think I'm finally back up here. Sorry about that. Yay. Okay, awesome. Yes, and then another person that I know has a couple tutorials on Twitch. Their name is Riku_VR. They have a lot of Unreal Engine tutorials, and yes, Fofamit, who someone just mentioned in chat, she has a ton of Unreal Engine tutorials, specifically on getting set up with like VRM models and all of that. So I'd say those three starting points are definitely really good, and those people have a lot of tutorials already on how to get started.
Well, wonderful. Thanks for the recommendations. Did you
actually,
I know you're going to show something, so
oh yeah. No, actually, I don't know. I saw them early in chat, but I don't know if Boom is still here. They have a lot of O's in their name. But I'm gonna try to find them in my history. Here we go. The reason I mentioned them is because they're actually right now making this really, it's cute. It's kind of like where you spawn in, but instead as Noodles, you spawn in as like these cats, and the cats vary in like sizes, and they just interact with each other. Like they'll go up and like they'll nuzzle with like the VTuber, and they've got some really cool dynamic pathing, and it's a little it's cool. It's going to like another level where it's more like AI based. So like instead of like in my case, we have it a little bit more structured, where people spawn in particular locations, but with their setup, they're actually doing something where it's a little bit more like AI based. So yeah, the pathing is unpredictable, and things that like you don't really know what's going to happen. So I think that's really cute. And just one other thing that comes to mind, which is so random, but there's actually for any of you that are into like K-pop, there's actually, I don't know if this has been discussed before, but there's a whole like K-pop boy band that is literally all in Unreal Engine, and they do all their choreography and everything with motion capture in Unreal Engine. And I don't know exactly how you pronounce it, if it's Plave or Plave, but that's a really cool use of it, and it kind of reminds me almost of VTubing in a way. But yeah, they're K-pop idols, and it's like 5 of them in a group. Like they're like in a real space, all using motion capture, body capture in Unreal Engine with each other. And I'm like, oh, this is so cool. Like there's so many creative uses out there, and yeah, there's a lot on Twitch especially, and I definitely recommend poking around there. Like it's kind of a small group of VTubers. Most people usually use some other programs, but I love specifically seeking out Unreal Engine VTubers, because you kind of can just take it to a whole other level where you can just do so many other things, where people are literally like making games for their community and everything.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
we've seen some of the K-pop and music artists, and right, some of those are done as
Yeah.
concerts, but there's no reason you couldn't do that in a stream or combine a lot of these elements. So chat, if you want to be the next K-pop star or rising VTuber, use our tools and let us know what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Um, so someone was asking, or I was curious rather, for aspiring VTubers, what would be your like one piece of advice?
I think for sure getting a design down helps a lot. Well, I guess also I would say sometimes I feel like, and I think this just goes for streaming in general. Try to definitely use as many like free assets that you can. There's a lot of free to use models out there, or like pretty affordable ones. Like when I first started, I basically um, used a free to use model, and then once I was like, oh, this seems like something I definitely want to continue doing, then I commissioned a custom one. Um, I was mentioning this earlier, but one thing that people use here too are like the metahumans. Like I've seen people use metahumans, which are a free to use asset, and they've like been using that as their VTuber, which is really cool if you want like a more hyper realistic approach to it. But yeah, I'd say just trying it out, because there's a lot of free assets out there before really truly investing in anything. For me, I use it more as just a way to experiment and have fun and have this like digital world to play around with. I know there are some people out there that use it more as a character performance type of role playing situation, which is very cool. So sometimes people will like literally kind of come up with the universe and like lore first, and then everything comes afterward. But yeah, for me, I definitely say um waiting to invest until you know you're gonna like it, because it always stings if you're gonna like spend a couple $100s on like a custom model or something, and then you find out like, oh, I don't think I actually want to do this, and then you're kind of out of that money.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I mean, there's no reason you couldn't block something out, right? Like people block out
Yeah.
games and designs, or you can play test something, or get a little playable together to see how you like it. And it's like, try out streaming, try out building a little level, get a feel for it, and then yeah, if it's vibing with you and you're really loving that flow, then there's no reason you can't, whether leveraging more free assets or go to something custom for
Yeah.
your explicit design,
So I'm gonna go back to this scene where people can spawn in their noodles. I apologize, since I did have to restart everything. Um, you you would have to type again if anyone wants to spawn in again. I'm so sorry about that. So that's one thing
And that's
that
in
we
your
set it up
chat,
that
not ours,
way.
just for the
Yeah, in
community.
my chat, right? Sorry about that. Yeah, the reason for that is because basically, just to make sure that it's a clean slate every time I go live, we just wipe out the city basically, and also for performance reasons too.
Yeah.
So yeah, but on the bright side, everyone can see that again. I didn't actually talk about the specifics, but you'll see at the bottom center of my portion of the stream there, those are the different commands that you can do in my chat specifically to change the head, top, and bottom. So it would be like X.H1, X.H2, X.H3, T1, T2, T3. Like those are for the different tops, and then those are for the different bottoms there. So that's how all of that functions. And just to show it off again, basically we can change different aspects about it. So you can change your color of your character. We have all the basic colors that you would expect, like of course red, orange, yellow, green, all that good stuff. But you can also do light colors if you want to. So if you wanted more of a pastel, I could do like a light purple, or I could do like a light pink. So pastels work. And then also, if you wanted to do a darker version, you can also do like a dark red, or you can do any dark version of any color. The way that we set this up is basically there's a table of predetermined colors that exist in our blueprints, and it just calls from all of those. So it's not case sensitive, but it is space sensitive. So if there's a couple missing spaces or whatever, then that will be missing. But to kind of circle back to earlier when someone was asking like, oh, like how do you test things out if it's just with like a live audience or if you do it on your own? And I can spawn in test Noodles. So right now you'll see the queue is going up, and that is because I just sent in for a batch of a bunch of them to basically go into queue. So you'll see that number is just rising up, and that's just because we're spawning in a bunch of random placeholders to go in there. So yeah, the way that this works is basically everyone has 2 minutes there to customize, and after the 2 minutes over, it cycles in another batch of people. And another way that folks can spawn in, if because like sometimes when we're back over here to when we're just chatting here, there is a way to basically with the channel points section under where my chat is, that is where you can go and spawn in. It's only 1 channel point, so if you follow, you get 300 channel points on my channel, and then you just type in spawn, or you can type in save to spawn in your save file, and it'll actually show up in a picture-in-picture while we're still there. And what's really cool is whenever you're spawned in there, you can go and type whatever you would like in there, and it'll actually show up in the actual world itself.
So good.
And yeah.
All right, so we have a community / as a community manager. We're gonna get out of the technology a little bit, and how do you moderate?
Sure.
Like if you have a misbehaving character and they're just popping up stuff on like in chat and whatever, and you're seeing that you may not be handling. Do you have the ability to sort of like eject Noodles that are being good civilians?
So no, that was a concern that came up with us for sure. So we have a built-in profanity filter into like with the blueprints. So basically, if any messages contain certain words, it'll be completely blocked out. And right now, to spawn in with the channel points, it's only 1 channel point, but we normally have it be exactly 300, which is how much you get for following. So if we see someone that is following with an unsavory name, then we know to just go there and ban them right away. Thankfully, that hasn't happened. We've had no instances of that occurring yet. But I do have an emergency button where I can basically purge all of the like Noodles that are currently on the world. So like if someone somehow bypasses and they spawn in with something offensive, then yeah, I can basically just purge all of them. I joked around, we haven't implemented this yet, but I'm like, I kind of want to, like, we call them, like when someone gets banned, it's like, oh, they got hit by the ban hammer. So like I want to get myself like an actual little ban hammer. I could go over there and like bonk them on the head to wipe them out. So I think like that's the next level. That's something we got to add for sure. Or just like troll around and you know, bonk people on the head for fun.
Well, yeah, I'd almost think that there'd be a way or a means, you know, if somebody from your community sort of reported to you of like, oh, this person said, I mean, it kind of depends on if you can see it or can at least report a name that maybe you missed, especially if it scales up, right? Like there's only so many you can do at once. But, you know, if there's a command that shows you a pop-up or somebody on your team to be able to be like, oop, yep, that's a name. And then they get the ban hammer or something, you know.
And thankfully everything's
I look forward to this animation.
Yeah, right. I know, me too. Yeah, so like let's say, because for instance, like the skydiving one, this one kind of lasts a little while, and I'll go redeem it right now. So if for whatever reason I'm like, oh, like something is showing up there that like I don't really like, I can just go and hide it, and it's still playing in the background, but like I have the control to filter like what shows up and what doesn't. So we have lots of multiple cameras that are going on in the world, and they basically have like on and off switches that I can essentially switch whenever I want to. So I can go to this scene to like, yeah, you know, bypass any potential emergencies that might happen for sure. Because yeah, no, you're right. You honestly never know, especially in the world of live streaming where you know, sometimes stuff like that can happen. One time I was follow botted, like where I just had a bunch of follows, and because I get a heart every time I get followed, suddenly there was a bunch of hearts like all around the world, which, isn't like the worst thing in the world. But I was like, oh wow. So then when that happened, then I programmed away. I'm like, okay, I have special commands that I can execute to toggle certain redemptions on and off. And then I also have things that can be time locked too. So like, for instance, if someone's like spamming something a lot, I can make it so that it can only be redeemed once per stream per user. Twitch gives you a lot of really great moderation tools to be able to like filter and moderate how often you want things to be redeemed on your stream, which is really nice.
Yeah, I was almost wondering too if like you could put a limit that's like, okay, if they keep trying to spawn the hearts or something, then it's like, well, we'll only spawn up to 3 simultaneous like heart
Right.
particle effects at once. So that way, one, because I'd worry about performance, right? If somebody decided, oh hey, we're gonna try and make all these things spawn at once and affect the stream, then but yeah, it sounds like you have a variety of different methods in there to help keep things tidy in the way the way you want your stream to be. So
yeah, the worst things that have happened were just like oh my gosh, there's one time where something happened where for some reason like I tried to like it was because I was trying to toggle between different outfits and like changing from one top to another top, where something occurred where suddenly my VTuber just didn't have a shirt in general. I'm like, oh no, I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, what happened? I'm like, and sure enough, I went back to the code. I'm like, oh, there was like something that was missing to put the shirt back on after a delay. And I'm like, oh geez. So yeah, there's been some pretty silly stuff that's happened like that before too. And but it's very fun. And yeah, there's like a bunch of silly stuff that chat can do. Like for instance, they can go and they can make my head really small for like a while like this, which they kind of troll me with every once in a while. Whenever I do something dumb, I just have like a small little head for a moment.
That's amazing. Love that. Well, yeah, this has been wonderful. I want to know, is there anything else you wanted to share or show off, or otherwise, unless chat has any other questions?
One last because we were talking about earlier like other Unreal Engine VTubers, and we're like shouting out different channels, and there's like a handful and they don't all immediately come to mind, but one's in chat right now. Their name is Fritzy Collins, and they have a really fun cool thing where you can spawn in as little slimes with your Twitch chat, and you can get different little hats, and they actually have a functioning race right now where you can spawn them in on a line, and you actually have to cheer them on in chat. Like you have to like type things for them to like continue moving onward. So yeah, I wanted to just give them a quick shout out while they're here in chat. Thankfully the Unreal VTuber community, it's pretty small, but like because they're so small, like we pretty much all know each other at this point, which is nice. But it's great because we like, again, a lot of us were all kind of communicating with each other like on little VTuber discords and stuff, and we can help each other out. So I think that's a big thing. If this is of any interest to you whatsoever, definitely check it out on Twitch. You can find a bunch of Unreal Engine VTubers here where people are using this platform in really fun and unique ways, and I'm really glad that chat was able to help out and spawn in a couple. I know we don't have everyone here because I had to restart the program a little bit earlier, but we got a pretty decent chunk here. So thank you again for giving me the chance to showcase this on Unreal Engine's channel. I really do believe that it's just like such a great platform, and I think that if anyone has ever thought about any type of project, whether it be VTubing or just like a small indie game or whatever, definitely give it a shot. Like if you're super passionate about it, there's so many great resources out there. And I've been having the time of my life working on this project for the last couple years.
Oh, well, thanks for all the kind words. I did want to give a moment. You talked about a VTuber Discord channel. Is that something that's open if folks are interested in getting into it? Is that something you'd want to share, or?
Let me see. I believe there is a invite I can get. Here we go.
Okay, yeah.
Or should I send it?
I didn't want to. It's like if it was a private chat, then that's fine. But if it's sort of an open invite, or folks that are interested, I'm happy to drop it in chat. So.
Yeah, I'll DM it to you. I don't know if I can post links in the Unreal Engine chat or if I'll get purged from a bot or
You
something. I'm
should
not
be
sure.
able to. You
Oh, I
should be
should be
all
able
right.
to? Okay, okay. I'll go ahead and put that there then. Yeah, so this is the Discord itself is called the Virtual Toolbox, and yeah, everyone that I mentioned a moment ago that I was like giving that shout outs to, that's where like all those VTubers are in there. There's a blueprint templates. Oh, or is it? Oh no, is that not working?
I pasted
Or
it in.
did my message fit? Oh, okay. But yeah, that is it's like just like an uh it somehow just came to be. I was invited to it and I was like, oh, this is great. And yeah, there's like a whole bunch of VTubers there, lots of tutorials. And if anyone has any questions there's a whole bunch of people there. There's that can help out. And also you can find a bunch of streamers there that use Unreal Engine to stream with.
Very cool. Well, thank you for walking around your level. Again, like I think the environment and the world and the interactivity that you build is just so unique and is such a cool showcase and use case of Unreal Engine. And I think it's really, it's fun that you could come show us, some of the behind the scenes. I know a lot of time virtual worlds are about being in that space directly, and not everybody always wants to like get in under the hood. So
Right.
yeah, really appreciate you taking time. And it sounds like we need to get everybody together and do like a panel and talk about VTubing and how
Yeah.
everybody's the different kinds of experiences folks are building, because I think that could be an interesting topic too. But,
Absolutely. Thank you so much for
yeah.
having me.
All right. Well, chat, thank you so much for coming and hanging out and asking us a bunch of questions and just overall supporting Andrew and their wonderful stream and game experience, I guess. I guess it's a game experience. And
I know
so,
I'm always like, is it
yeah,
a game, an app? Like
it's whatever you want it to
it's
be,
something.
So yeah, follow if you haven't yet and you want to check out his streams and or the Noodle experience. Go over to Andrew Arcade on Twitch, and they can follow you on Twitter and the YouTube, right, as well.
Yeah, you can find my handle at Andrew Arcade. Yeah, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, Twitch, everywhere. Andrew Arcade. I also have a website where you can find more information about the Noodles and my app there, just like a basic breakdown of all the features. And I need to be better about it. And but I do have some updates there where I go with some behind the scenes footage of screenshots and stuff. So yeah, you can find a couple other information there.
Awesome. Well, thanks again to Andrew, Claps, all the profs, Mad Snaps, and thank you again, chat, for joining us. I hope you all have a fantastic weekend and a wonderful week. We will see you next Thursday. Take care.